we think we project ourselves on others. So if something's really easy for us and simple for us, we think, oh, anyone could do that. Yeah. And so if you find yourself saying that, that's definitely not true. My wife Nancy's like, when I talk, she's doing all these big numbers for people and wealth management, and then she walks out and I go, that's amazing. Anyone could do that. I'm like, no, I hate numbers. I wouldn't be doing that. So just understanding that thing in you that you think is so natural or intuitive would be a good sign that it's in the 20%.
Welcome to the Leveraging Success podcast. I'm your host, Jeff Gearhart. Every time that we get together, we are working towards helping you work less, make more, and with your margin, take that and apply it to an incredible life's mission. What if you could take your time and apply it to the thing that God called you to, being certain that on the other side of eternity, you would be expecting a well done because you were working in collaboration with what God is already at work in. And on top of all of that, you could be an incredible spouse, an incredible parent, and have a fantastic career. All those things can happen, but this is not something that we're enticing you with. Today, we want to talk to you about that. As always, here partnered with me, Rob Dayton. Rob, so glad that we could have this conversation.
Hey, Jeff, what's going on?
Man, I think we were talking about this earlier before we started rolling, is that if we could just put a mic between us every time we sit down for a meal or get together, I think there would be lots of things that would be interesting. We get to talk about a lot of these concepts because we're both practitioners and we get to coach in this space. Today, we want to talk about 80-20. And 80-20 is something, whether you're familiar with Pareto, you've seen it in quality control, you've heard about it in terms of statistics or ways with which you can get more with less, because in fact, 80% of our results come from 20% of our efforts. The frustrating thing is the balance of our time, the other 80% that's seemingly wasted because it's not the best of me. It's things that are superfluous, things that people want me to do that I feel obligated to do. And then I get twisted up in so much things. And then there's these rare moments when I'm in the flow or I'm getting to do the thing that I was made to do, that I'm in that 20%. And then all of a sudden, big results come from the leverage of that 20% that makes up 80%.
Yeah, it's such a good topic. I love the fact that if we just had microphones all the time, that's some pretty good content.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the 20%, I think that the 80-20, I think one of the biggest questions for people is, what is the 20%?
Well, it's that thing.
What is the 20% that's going to give me the 80% result? And then I think we kind of know when we suck and we have. I think that's easier, but I think in this conversation we really need to define for people what is in the 20%.
Well, we need to figure that out because so much of our life is spent on things that are not the 20%. And so if I could figure that out, I could actually multiply that. In other words, if I knew what my unique capabilities, talents, and all of that fits into that 20%, the things that were either wired into me or I have developed over time, that it doesn't make sense. It's a advantage that I have, that every time I roll out of bed, when I do those things that are in my 20%, I'm doing it better than most, if not best in class, world-class level. But oftentimes it's a fleeting moment of that 20% or a short period, a burst where I get to do it. And that was fantastic. And if only that was my everyday. But we need to design towards that. And interrogating that is an important part of discovering me and who God made me to be.
We have to figure it out. And, I think one of the biggest challenges is that a lot of times we think we project ourselves on others. So if something's really easy for us and simple for us, we think, oh, anyone could do that. Yeah. And so if you find yourself saying that, that's definitely not true. My wife Nancy's like, when I talk, she's doing all these big numbers for people and wealth management, and then she walks out and I go, that's amazing. Anyone could do that. I'm like, no, I hate numbers. I wouldn't be doing that. So just understanding that thing in you that you think is so natural or intuitive would be a good sign that it's in the 20%. What would be, Jeff, what would you say is another sign?
Another sign is that time starts to go by really quickly when I get to do it, meaning whether it's time standing still and all of a sudden I wake up and it's been many more hours or longer than I had planned for the activity. And I realize, gosh, when I do this, I lose track. Things just start to slow down while I am seemingly moving fast and I'm accelerating. I think, time being off and me being lost in time is a great flag for that.
That's exactly right. I see that in myself too, losing track of time. And then if you experience rapid learning, so if you are really drawn into a subject when you're learning it, and it is very intuitive and easy to learn, that would be a sign it's in your 20. And then conversely, it wouldn't be in your 20 if it's just like frustrating, it takes extra brain power, you find yourself yawning, you can't stay engaged, then you know that's going to be at the top 20%, which is the I suck at that, don't ever do that again. Don't even waste yourself. Here's the thing that, and Jeff, it's fascinating because I do the strengths workshop, and people don't understand that they will grow the most in their greatest strength. They don't understand that. And we show this little Gallup case study where the case study is it's a rapid learn. You learn how to read fast, and they have slow readers and fast readers. And the slow readers take the course and they get 50% better. And I always ask the question, what do you think the fast readers, what percentage did they learn? And the answer is 600%. And then everyone goes, how could that be? Well, the answer is that when it's in your 20%, you can become a master of who you are. And so it's really critical to understand to actually focus on learning the thing you're amazing at and avoiding trying to manage a weakness, or you can manage weakness, but not try to improve it. And people don't intuitively think train in something I'm good at. That doesn't make sense. But if you want to harvest the 20, that's what you're going to have to do.
Yeah. Keep a vision then for where we're going, which is to say that if I could get margin in time, meaning I could get headroom for availability to be on mission and doing the thing that God called me to do, and to be able to be incredible as a parent, spouse, and to be incredible in my career. When we talk to people about putting calling into the mix or life mission, and feels like you're asking me to sort of cram in more into my existing schedule. And the reason that we want to deep dive this and really think about this 20% is because it's a leverage point. And if we're going to leverage our success, then we're going to leverage the things that God made us to be. But Rob, you said it so well, is that we tend to undervalue our skills. But if we're really going to start to take this seriously, then we're going to become students of ourselves. Now, whether it was Myers-Briggs in college or DISC or in later days, other tools that are out there, from Colby to Six Working Genius. There are so many out, and all of them I find lots of value because they give me other angles to who are you, Jeff? Where do you accelerate? Where is your strength at? Where do you seemingly get as much energy as you exert? That's another way that you can tell that you're in the 20% is that everyone sees me sweating, but I feel like I'm getting filled up while I'm exerting really hard. So if I could figure that out and go into it and figure out that 20%, then I could get that leverage. So recentering on like the point of the matter is you need to get your freedom. When Paul talked to the Ephesians and he said, hey, to those of you who are free, don't become slaves of men again. And so if we can get our freedom, we should do so. So putting those pieces together and say, okay, the encouragement is for us to be free if we can gain our freedom, and that's an if. And if we can gain our freedom, then don't go back to the slavery. And you can use every biblical example, whether you want to talk about Israel leaving Egypt and always looking back saying, maybe it would be better if we were still being beaten by the Egyptians somewhere. But this will be your challenge. This is our challenge, is to continue to move forward in this. There's a better place for me. There's a better use of me Now that I've achieved success, I want to figure out the piece of me that is not just special, it's the place where I do little and get much. And then that's going to start to help me go after the 80%. Rob, do you think we're missing anything that would be helpful to try to describe finding and exploiting the 20%?
Well, yeah, the tough part is we don't want to look in the mirror. And just kind of taking your slave analogy, I think the reason why people would go back to slavery is they don't have a vision for what it could be. And that's the thing is when you start growing the 20%, and I've seen in my life, I know Jeff has too, things get so much more easy. They get more exciting. Days are not boring. And so that's ultimately where we want to go and get that margin. The challenge is like, Jeff, you were mentioning all those assessments. I can't tell you how many times I've given people assessments and then I'll ask, so, like with Gallup, so what's your top five? They don't know. I'm like, dude, that is your pot of gold. Like that is the thing that's going to get you the most results, the most margin. You're going to fully leverage everything you are, and you don't know. So, like, the assessments are just no good. They're exciting for people, but if you don't do deep, and I would say journaling, thinking, and asking, we ask God, like, so what do you see? Here's what the talents are saying. Here's what the assessment. What do you see, Father, in me? And really think deeply about who you are. Look into the mirror and begin to own who you are. The Father saying, "You are amazing. I created you. You're a part of my design." We have to come into agreement with what He's saying. Those assessments are clues to the brilliance He's created in you.
Yeah. Rob, as I think about my top five and I look at that, I realize that having them not only cognizant in terms of what they are, knowing what they mean, but then being able to see them in action, that's the thing. And that's, like red car syndrome, which is when you buy a car, you start to see it around you. You didn't realize that everybody owns the car that you just bought. And so the same sort of flagging happens for me when I'm able to name the strength, name the characteristic, and see it. And when I see it, and then can match to the leverage point of I got so much from so little. Now I'm connected to a cause or a root cause for an opportunity to say, I want to do more of that. How could I do more of that? And whether it's a singular activity or a product, creating a product, that that could be scaled to, well, with this great supply, what's the demand signal? Is there a demand out there for this that I could just go for that more? And then everything else in the 80%, that's what we need to talk about. So if I'm going to get my headroom and to take it seriously, it's to get rid of the things that are wasteful, the non-value added part of my life. And that's to look at that 80% and start to say, well, how much of this can I delegate? How much could I eliminate? And how much could I automate? And maybe even just straight neglect and say, you know what, that email could stay there and someone else will answer it. Or, I can let this linger for a while and it's benign. It's not going to hurt anyone. It's not going to ruin our mission. And it's not going to break a responsibility. And leave that there and neglect. And it's part of that fact that when eliminated and I didn't take the energy to weigh in on something, then I've created headroom for myself. So all of those steps, delegate, eliminate, automate, and even neglect, create a way to just start to take some of that 80% down. So now I've got margin.
Yeah, you do. In saying no, I'd say you're right. Is going to be the biggest easiest way to get margin. I remember when I first learned this concept, there was a meeting I had to go to every month. It was all the cities had to report at this county meeting, and I was like, I hate this meeting. This meeting is just the worst meeting. It takes I have to drive up there. I've spent 4 hours. It's like a full day, and so I said. So I called up the chair guy, the guy that was running the meeting. I was saying, "Hey, I can't make it this month." So okay, we'll be fine. And so then the next month I said, "So So same thing. I got this conflict, and is it gonna be okay if I don't show up? It's like, okay, we were fine. Yeah. And then the third month, I'm like, hey, has it been working out without me? Because it seems like I've got this other thing come on. I was like, we're fine. I said, I'll send someone if you really need me. I got rid of this thing. And it was like this huge burden lifted and all this margin. And then the other thing, Jeff, that we haven't pointed out is if the 20% is breathtaking for you, the place that's producing 80% of results, the part that you suck at is just going to be horrible and brutal, and you won't look forward to it, and you'll loathe it, and you'll be going, why did I do that? So saying no is one of the biggest things you can do, is just to get it off the plate. And then next level would be, for that in between would be the systemize, or having a delegation situation, finding a who that would fit that situation better than.
This is the founder's trap, right? Or the entrepreneur's trap that believes that, hey, I can get anything done. I'm able to just muscle my way through it. And you know what? If there's ambiguity, uncertainty, we're lacking some talent, I can just take it on. I'll throw it onto my back and we're going to carry this through. But those are the traps, right? Those are the places with which we need to be thinking of potentially opportunity expansion for somebody that's on our team, or somebody that we just need to engage as a vendor partner who can come alongside us. Maybe it's someone who can volunteer the time. I don't know, but I just know that when people get opportunities, they trust us as leaders more. They think, "Wow, he's giving me that responsibility. I trust him because he trusts me, or I trust her because she trusts me." And by that, now we're creating more trust and we're releasing authority. But I understand, this is the space of risk. This is the place with which, as I start to release that, and then it's someone else's, good chance it may not go as good as you hope, or perhaps they can never do it as good as you can in your mind or my mind as I think about it. Then, we lose the opportunity when we don't release that authority. So this is the way that we multiply and we grow other leaders. And as we do that and raise them up to take on more responsibility, we actually can see our business, our organizations that we lead scale. And as they scale, we see ourselves getting out of the business, working on it, not in it. Now we're getting more headroom for the thing that God made us for.
That's really good. So let's talk about this practically. So if I'm listening to this, how do I practically find the 20% in such a way that I'd be able to multiply it? So just really, really easy. It just doesn't have to be complicated. It could be a yellow pad, it could be a notes in your phone. But all you're going to do is you're going to start listing every activity you do during the day. It's super boring, but you're going to list every activity. So, even if it's like, carpool leader, whatever it is, you're listing everything in your day. Had a one-on-one with such and such. We talked about this as an example, or got together with some friends. Subject was this at this rest, whatever it is, all the activities in your day. And then you're going to rate four different options here. First one is hated it, felt weak. Second one was it was okay, felt like I was competent. Third one is going to be, pretty good, felt good. And then the last one is going to be felt really strong. It was excellent. So 4 ratings. And then, so what you're doing is you're seeing the hot, the cold, and the in between, and that's what we're talking about. The 20% is going to be that excellent. It felt good, like Jeff said, you were in the flow, and then the bottom 20% is going to be weak, sucked, don't want to do it again, and then just really easy is okay. How do I eliminate the ones in the column which were weak, did not feel good? And how do I maximize or repeat the things that are in the last column? Just super practical. I don't know about you, Jeff, but I'm doing that at least every quarter, just doing that list to see what, just to test the waters. Am I really getting hotter and hotter? How about you? What's your jam?
Actually, mine is, why don't I love this? And so the big question then is, okay, if I can understand why I don't love it, it should connect back to me for a sort of hot stove moment. And so what I mean by that is that when I was little, I used to see my mom cook. And so when she wasn't looking, I got a stool, I got up on that stool, I turned on the stove and I put my hand on it. I burnt my hand really bad when I was a little boy. And it was just my decision that I needed to find for myself, is this really a hot stove? Then I get burned. I'm like, I never want to touch that again. Right. So when I think about why I don't like something, then I'm able to say that's a hot stove. That's something that's going to cause me pain. I know it's a trap. Like for some reason, obligation, feeling like I should, I get like a fly to the light to some of these things. But then if I can go back to saying, the reason I really don't like this is it requires galvanizing. Just as an example, a six working genius, uh, one of the six, galvanizing, that's not my strength. I can galvanize when I need to, but it's not something where I'm getting filled up. And when I'm doing it, I'm not using my genius. So if I can avoid it and give it to someone that's great at galvanizing, like you, Rob, then we're winning together. And so that sort of connection for me is the why do I love this? Why don't I love this? And if I can then get back to the connection of a trait, a strength, a working genius, then I'm able to say, okay, that's not me. Just to be clear about all these things is that, when we look at any one of these tools, again, I named a bunch of them, and it doesn't matter which one you name, what it's doing for you is helping you to see your preferences. And when you've identified your preferences, then you lean into the preference, because indecision is inefficient. Here's the example. If we walked into an ice cream shop and it was vanilla or chocolate in front of you, if 51 times out of 100 you chose chocolate, then you've got a preference for chocolate. So lean in. Doesn't mean that you couldn't occasionally choose vanilla, but the more that you know your preference, even if it's slight, and so whether that's extroversion, uh, whether it's ideation, innovation, any one of the strengths, then you need to know that as a preference. And so the more that you can identify your preference, then you just say, hey, I'm walking in here and it's the fastest way to value for me to just say chocolate, chocolate, chocolate. And by that, I understand my preference. Now, I've been with plenty of people that say I'm a chameleon, or I feel like I adapt. And you can, but leaders, especially successful people, the further you get into success, the more that you're going to want to identify that preference for the efficiency of it. And it's going to create muscle memory for you. And it's not a matter of right or wrong, it's just the depth of that preference. And the more I know, and the more that I understand, the more that I can just lean into it and say, this is me. This is who I am. We're not going to argue nature nurture. We're not going to try to figure out how did this get this way. It's just simply, I know what I love. And by that, I stay in that and I get a lot of efficiency and a lot of leverage from that.
So good. I love that. Yeah. So I think that's a good summary. I think it's a good summary for the people who are listening. We've given them practical tools. We've told them how to identify the 20% at the top and the bottom, what to do with the middle, systematize, or do handing them off to someone else that actually loves that thing. Don't deprive someone who loves it. So I think that's good. That's a good complete system of 80-20 principle. How do I practically do it?
There you go. Hey, this podcast is new for us, and we are excited to continue to bring you tools with which you can leverage the success that you've had in your life for the thing that God created you for, the life mission that He's got for you. And so, would you take time to rate this podcast? Would you leave a comment? Would you share it with somebody? And we would really appreciate that, because the opportunity to serve successful people allows us to say, what if we could see a new movement for Christ of business leaders who would say, I've got some incredible contributions to make, and I want to take the wealth that God's given me, the position, the influence, and I want to bundle that up to make an eternal echo, something that will last forever. Hey, I'm Jeff Gearhart with my partner here, Rob Dayton. We're really glad to serve you. Until next time, God bless you.